Welcome, everyone, to this week's Life Conversations with a Twist. I'm so honored to have Amy Kemp here. Her and I just met. This is what I really, truly love about our women community and our podcast community is that we get connected to all these amazing women all over the world. You're in Chicago. I'm like,
I mean, ish, kind of.
well, you're across
I
the United States from me.
yeah. Yeah, I say it's more like I could see more cornfields than skyscrapers where I live, but it is an hour to downtown Chicago. So I have a little bit of my feet in both worlds.
I love it. Awesome. Well, tell the listeners a little bit about who you are. We're going to dive in. This is going to be such a great, juicy conversation, and I can't wait to have it. But tell the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my background, my professional background, I originally was a high school English teacher, loved doing that work. And then that was a brief stint, started to build my own business on the side while I was teaching. And then I worked in sales and in sales leadership specifically for over 20 years. I built a really, really large organization across the country and kind of climbed to the top of that mountain. About 8 years ago, I accidentally started a new business, which grew faster than I thought it would. And so currently, my work, about 98% of it, is within the context of Amy Kemp Inc., which is the name of the company I started. And I use a specific assessment tool called the Habit Finder and then a curriculum that corresponds with it to help people identify their subconscious habits of thinking that are creating resistance in their life, that are underneath the surface that we're unaware of, but that are really getting in our way of creation. So I also have three kiddos. They are old now, almost all of them. Only one is not taller than me, and I am very tall. So this is fun. I have a 21-year-old daughter who is a college graduate heading to graduate school. And then my son is a freshman in college. And then I have another son who's the caboose who's heading to high school next year. So I'm in a new season of parenting. And I have to tell you, I love it. I love adult children. I mean, they have their challenges, but it's really, I really enjoy seeing who they are. I'm enjoying watching them make their way in the world and become more and more independent. So I've kind of relished it and I have so much more time. Oh my goodness, it's amazing.
It's
So
so
that
funny
too.
you say that because I have so many thoughts around that. But I used to be scared of like adult children, like teenagers scared the crap out of me. I have one now, and I have a stepdaughter who is now 19, and I am embracing it a little bit more. And they are fun. I totally get that, but it's also scary. My daughter, my oldest, like one that I have birthed, is about to go into high school, and that like is very scary for me,
Yeah.
being a girl and this time of life. But I'm really excited for her. But you had asked me earlier before we jumped on, like who's my demographics, and I do have a lot of friends who are in that transition of my kids are now, moving away to college, and like, how do I find myself again? And then how do I like reconnect with my husband? And it's like because you're just so go go go, and so it's so interesting. I cannot wait to be back. I cannot wait to get there. But I started over, and I have a 3-year-old, so I'm like literally a
Oh,
long time to go.
you are straddling very old people and very young people.
Yes. I'm like, oh, I have a long way to go.
Oh, that's
So
so
I'm
funny.
jealous of you.
Mm, I know. I think parenting has a lot to teach us. I've tried really hard to embrace all of the seasons of it.
Mhm.
Littles were hard for me. Babies were hard. I have a really active mind. And there was a lot of circularity in that season of just you're doing the same things over and over again. So I think my gifts are better equipped for older kids. And then I also sort of relish the um, it is a little bit choppier, I think, given technology. Oh, by the way, we just got our 14-year-old a phone. We are late phone givers at our house. We do not, my husband is an assistant principal at our high school, so he sees a lot of things. And anyhow, I feel like I've opened the fifth portal to hell,
Yeah, I know.
instantly changed.
Yep.
And I just always say to parents, know that you are going to probably need to give them that at some point, right? But also know that the day you put that light in front of their face from a screen, the light in their eyes gets dimmer.
Mhm.
And
So true.
I just, I don't know what to do about it. I'm working, I mean, we have strict limitations and, we're really rigid with it, but even so, I mean, there are some things that you lose control of in that journey. So we're working on it. I think that we all are going to look back at like giving our kids phones so young and say, what were we doing? Just as we do like people smoking all the time in the 70s or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just think it'll be our thing where we'll say, can you believe that we did that?
Uh, I know it is very wild to me.
Yeah.
You hit something that was interesting to me is you said that because I struggle with this. I love being a mom and everyone's like, you're such a good mom. And I think that I'm a good mom. But sometimes I find that I'm more passionate about my career and doing creative projects and things like that. And I feel a lot of mom guilt because then I'm like, why is it that I'd rather work my butt off and be, doing all this work and working long hours and not wanting to be a mom? And I struggle with that a lot. And um, how do you, I mean, it sounds like you were kind of in the
Oh,
same boat. Like, how do you,
such a good question. Okay. First, I will tell you, I have the advantage of being raised by a very ambitious, successful mom who was also a fabulous mom.
Mhm.
And so I believe more important than being a certain kind of mom is that we are being true to who God created us to be, like who we were created to be, our own unique genius. And we were just giggling about this. We started to get these HelloFresh meals. It's a long story,
I love
but
HelloFresh.
okay, I am not a cook. At best, I warm up food, right? I mean, everyone is fed, but like it's not fancy. So these meals, I'm way out above my skis. Like I zested a lemon this week. I'm 47. I've never zested a lemon. Like I don't want to zest a lemon, but I'm doing it. But this is what I have the benefit of having been raised by my mom, I would say, is that I don't feel bad about what I'm not as a mom.
Mm.
And I think it has served my kids so well. I see them becoming who they are, and they're very different from me. I want to empower them to do that. I don't want to put these expectations that you have to be a certain way as a parent, or you have to do certain things, or you have to be good at certain things. I'm not very nurturing by nature, right? But I
Mm.
will take care of you. But that's not my nature. And they don't need that from me if that's not who I am, right? What
Right.
they need to see is that I am unapologetically stepping into my unique genius and using it to serve the world. And when I do that, they'll do the same. And they are. Like
Mhm.
I'm just, I hate, I decided a while back, I won't do guilt.
Mm.
I will be intentional in my choices around my parenting, which this actually is a good segue into this concept that I talk about in my book, which is um, setting goals with boundaries, because this is so important for parents. Um, I think sometimes we have a tendency to go to these environments like an event or you hear a speaker or, whatever.
Mhm.
And it's a very controlled environment where you're away from your house, you're away from the chaos of your kids and all of the things of life, your family, community, all that. And our ambition, which is there for a reason, is stoked. And it's sort of like the fire is lit. And we set these huge goals without taking into account the people in our lives that we care for, the commitments we've made in our community, volunteer commitments, family commitments, all of the unpaid labor that we do in our homes. And so it's not that you can't have the ambition, it's that the goal needs to have a boundary. So, as an example, this would just be an example of a goal with boundary. I want to increase my income by $5,000 a month while still taking Fridays off to spend that time with my small children. My personal goal with a boundary is that I want to get paid like a CEO while working like a teacher. So I work from 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. I don't do evenings, I don't do weekends. And it sounds super cool, right? Like it sounds so great, but I'll tell you where the rubber meets the road. So I had a prospective client. I met her and she was my people. Like when we talked, it was such a deep connection. So at the end of the call, she says, I don't even need to talk to my husband. This is for sure a yes. We're moving forward with this coaching engagement. And so I said, great, let's schedule your first session. And she said, oh, okay, I can only talk after 6 p.m. during the week.
Mm. Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many things, right? I loved her. It was a lot of money. Like there were a lot of things, but the goal is to get paid like a CEO while working like a teacher, not just to get paid like a CEO. So I don't, it was so, I said, I'm going to need to sleep on this because my tendency is just to say yes and to violate that boundary. I slept on it. I called her back. I said, if you are unable to meet during these times, like I can't do it because I know I'll be resentful. And if I do that, the whole foundation of all the work I do is violated. I can't walk with integrity. And so, but it's like really easy to say the goal with the boundary. It's a day-to-day walk to really live it out. But it is important when you have commitments outside of just your work and what you want to create. Also, don't feel bad that the work is more fun because the work is more fun. The kids are annoying and hard. I mean, and
Are.
anyone who's saying differently is lying. Like parenting
Every
is
day I'm
so
like, this is why I go to work because you're all annoying.
oh, oh my gosh. And 3-year-olds? Are you kidding me? You're
Or
in the worst two stages of parenting at the same time, by the way. I think 2 to 4 is fun once they get older, right? But like 2 to 4. And then like 13 to 16-ish is like toddlerhood of teenagerdom, right? So you're
one, I have
doing
11-year-old and a 14-year-old.
oh gosh, yeah,
So I'm like literally like,
you're doing all of it. So yeah. So I would just say don't feel guilty about it. It's really
okay.
hard and it's not very fun and work is more fun right now.
I do have to say, when you were talking about like being in a controlled environment, I'm actually going to record a podcast next week, a solo one, because I had mentioned that I do women's retreats, and not only do we create the space for these women who are coming here and experiencing this, but like I get a lot out of it myself, right? It's a lot of clarity for myself. It's a time to be away, to be focused. And I
So
was like, so like when I left there, I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is the direction. I'm not doing events anymore. I'm not doing the things that I like don't love and don't fuel me up. And then I get home and like I'm home and these kids are screaming at me and they're hating. And like I'm like, and I now feel so derailed off of that vision and that dream that I have that I'm like mad at everything that I do. And I'm in this like
and
very
go
angry
back.
stage right now.
Tell me what the dream was. The dream was what?
I love my podcast. I love doing women's retreats. I want to like lean into that world more, but
Yeah.
in able to do that, I have to, well, one, I have to make money, but like all these jobs that I'm doing currently that I'm like, well, they pay the bills, but they're not fulfilling me.
Okay.
And, but I can't do the work on this other end to grow because
Mm.
I'm so constantly stuck in these other smaller projects. And so like I'm giving myself 6 weeks to like some of these projects are wrapping up and like I'm very focused on this is what I want to do and I'm
Yeah.
going to do it
So you want to lean into the retreats and the podcast,
and
but
figure out a way to make money.
the financial pressure of that or the financial needs are being met by the other work.
Yeah.
Mm, I
Hmm.
have so many thoughts about that. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Is the other work entrepreneurial or is it?
It is. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have two businesses. I do business development consulting, and so I help businesses with like client relations and strategy around growing their business and how do you rely on your partnerships in your community and building relationships with your clients, and that's how you grow because that's what my experience is. So that I want to like make a course and like make it so I can still give my experience and the love for that something, but not have to be like so in the weeds with it. My background, I've done events for 25 years. And so that's what I get stuck doing. Everyone's like, do you want to do this event? Do you want to help with this event? I'm like, sure, it's easy. but I'm like, I hate it. So why am I doing it?
Oh,
And then my husband and I own a business, which is a labor company, which that we love that business. And I know that it could be one of those businesses, like you were saying, where I can be a CEO and only work 3 days a week and make great money. But like in order for that to grow, I've got to let go of the time consuming projects that I currently am doing. I'm in a very stuck moment. This is why I
oh
told
my
you when I
gosh,
got,
you
I was
need
like,
to read my book today. Like it
honestly,
so speaks to right to where you are. You will absolutely die when you read it. You will be like, oh my goodness.
let's talk about your book. Like
Yeah, I would
how did
love
this book
to.
concept, like how did so
Mhm.
you're like me, you have all these creative projects, you're, building all these other businesses up. You're like, I'm gonna go do my own thing. Like, how did you get to this point where you're
Yeah.
doing this work now?
Okay, so well, first of all, this this whole idea of like creating something entrepreneurial, right, teaches you so much. It has so much for you. It brings up all of the stuff inside of us that needs to be healed, that needs to be addressed, all of that. Okay. So so I was working, it's kind of hard to describe, but in the context where I was working, I was leading a huge organization. We actually led the entire company in sales many years in a row. I was in a very small bubble, what I would call quote unquote famous, right? Where, you know, I was working closely with corporate on decisions that were being made. I was speaking at all of the large events in front of thousands and thousands of people. Like there was a presence about that work that happened or that was happening. At the same time, there had been some changes and things that were going on, but we were in a very expensive season of life, as are you,
Mhm.
with, I kind of call it like the Uber era of parenting, where everybody's in stuff, but nobody can drive. And so
Yep.
you're driving them around
Yeah.
and everything they're doing is kind of expensive. Plus,
Mhm.
you have college coming and you have these other, it's just a lot, right? So we were meeting with my financial advisor and I had filled out all the forms. My husband and I went in to meet with her, and it was a turning point day where she had these forms in front of her. I remember what I was wearing. I remember the chair I was sitting in. I can hear the air conditioning blowing. I can hear it even in my head right now. So we're sitting there, and she's a trusted friend, advisor, and she says, I've reviewed everything and it looks great. You're managing your money well. You're not overspending. You don't have debt. You're doing a great job. And then she kind of like straightened the papers and leaned forward and she said, there's just one problem if you want to achieve the goals that you outlined in your form. You're not making enough money. And like the air just left the room. I couldn't breathe. I don't remember what else she said. It was like Charlie Brown's teacher, just wah, 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 wah. I don't know what else was said, but I knew a couple of things. One, my husband is in education and should be. And the only way you make more there is to get older. So that was not an option, right? Like I just knew he wasn't. And then the second thing I knew is that I was the only other person in the room. And so a lot of things happened, but what I knew is that I wasn't willing to give up on the goals.
Mhm.
I also knew I could not add any more hours to my work. I couldn't. I was working full time. I wasn't willing to miss out on the things that were happening after school at that time. I just wasn't. I wouldn't do it. I'm not missing out on that. It was too important to me. I felt like those years of parenting were so important that I was there for the in-between conversations and just all of that, right? And so it really was a defining moment where I had to start to look inward. Thankfully, I worked with some coaches, and during that same time, like a couple of months later, I happened to be in Salt Lake City. Oh my gosh, this is so real to me still. I can like feel the whole thing with my body. So I was heading to Salt Lake City to speak at an event. I reached out to a coach I had worked with who lives out there. I said, I'd love to see you. He had worked with a lot of people in my organization. The work I did with him was the most transformational work I had ever done. My business quadrupled in size. It was just life changing. So, anyhow, he picked me up from the airport. We went out to dinner. And I say to him, like, I tell him kind of all of this that's going on. I also tell him that I've been having these conversations with women I know who are absolutely exhausted and absolutely beast mode, amazing, successful women, exhausted, isolated, alone. I'm like, I think I need to do something with these women. I got this issue with them not making enough money. There was just a lot. And he says to me, we're starting a training using the Habit Finder assessment for people who want to use it as coaches on Monday. This was a Thursday. I think that you, I think you should do it. And I think you should get these women together. I was like, what? I mean, I had never thought of it. Like it was so far from my, what? I'm already building this other business. It just felt so crazy that I said yes and started with just these two groups of women. What transpired required that I say no more than yes. I had to extricate myself from some places that were really hard to extricate myself from. A lot of people depending on me, a lot of people misunderstanding my decision, a lot of people not happy with my decision. It was very difficult. It is very
And
difficult.
I bet you haven't looked back.
Um, I wouldn't say it's been that neat and tidy.
Well, it never is, right? It's always like
I mean, I could tell the story that way. I think it would be not honest. But I think that what has happened is that I did some deep work on me and my habits of thinking. Things like I challenged some stories, like the only way that you lose or that you fail is to quit. Like that was one story that I heard a lot. And I was like, actually, that's not true. I really needed to quit a lot of things. Um, and that led me to, which is making me think of what you're saying. But those quits were um, fraught with feedback. A lot of people had input for me on those decisions, and I was attached to their input. And so there was a need to separate and to let people have their experience with my decision without feeling like I was responsible for them in any way. And so it was really tricky. It was very difficult. I spent a lot of time alone, or I had to be so careful that I could hear my inner voice. I couldn't I couldn't expose myself to a lot of things that would cause me to waver during that time. So it
And
was
then how long was that process? And then how did the work that you're doing now, like and tell people like what are
What's
you
the
doing?
work? I
What
know.
is this
So,
work?
okay, the work that I do now is so sacred to me. It is, it's really amazing work. So, this tool that I use is an assessment tool, and then there's a curriculum. It's not a personality assessment. It's not like strengths or what you're good at or any of that. This is like when you're not aware of it, you have these grooves in your brain. And these grooves are affecting your decisions, the way you connect with people. They're affecting your ability to embrace processes and see work through to completion. They're affecting the way you feel about yourself every minute of every day, but they're just thoughts, but they're happening, right? And so this assessment sort of brings that to the surface and gives you a snapshot. And you can take it for free on my website. It's a super cool tool. But more importantly, within the context of small groups of women who have nothing in common, they're from all parts of the country. Like in my groups this semester, people are from like 15 different states. So it's like all over groups of 8 to 10 women. We are digging into these habits of thinking and how they're affecting your ability to get work done, or how they're affecting your relationship with your husband, or how they're affecting um, your pursuit of that bigger, bolder thing, right? I also do this work one on one a lot of the women I work with are in positions of leadership where it's not appropriate for them to talk about things in groups, even small groups. The decisions they're making are so important and they're affecting so many people that you just need a private space
Mhm.
to process. I'm deeply concerned for any leader in that kind of role who doesn't have space like that, for the record. It's so important that you have somewhere where you can process what's happening inside of you. And so um, I get to hold space for these women. And what's so cool is when you turn down the volume of the noise from these subconscious habits of thinking, they go. Like, I mean, even in the last couple of weeks, I was like, I just bought my first investment property. I negotiated a $20,000 raise that I never thought they would give me. I signed the things to start the S Corp for my new company. Like the things they're able to create and do once they're not bogged down by all this noise, it's astonishing. And I get to like the front row seat to it. So it's really cool. So that's my work now. And then I published a book last year.
Yeah, if you're on
Um,
YouTube, you can see it. I was like, when we got on, I'm like,
oh yeah, you can't see it
ta-da!
behind me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I published my first book. It's called I See You, a guide for women to make more, have more, and be more without more work.
I
Um,
literally need to read this. Like, I I was just sitting in the hot tub with my husband last night. My husband got hurt on the job at work, and he had back surgery a year and a half ago. So he's been currently not working, and of course, like we get money, but it's not what it would be if he was working overtime and all the things. And so I've been basically in this position to like figure it out. Like I'm the like you were just saying, like my husband, this is where he's at, and like there's no movement here. So it's kind of up to me to figure it out. And I told my husband last night, like, I'm exhausted. Like I don't want to wear the pressure. I don't want to worry about it every day, how we're going to make bills. And, and then, it's like, oh, well, we're in debt now. And I'm like, how did we get there? I'm like, well, how did we not get there? I'm like, we don't live out of our means. We don't go on these beautiful vacations. We don't buy designer clothes. Like we live very frugal. And we're still like, it's, but I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm like, I want to work less and make more money. And that is like literally where I want to be right now. So I
uh,
need to read this book.
You do. And I wrote it for you. Like I wrote it for you. I didn't know you, but I wrote it for you because you're not alone in that experience.
Yeah.
What also this money, there's a whole chapter in the book called Money is a Mirror, but what you're rubbing up against really in that earning piece, well, there's two things. One, we are not culturally conditioned as women to carry the weight of being the provider. We are not taught that as we're growing up. I have always carried that burden. It is a heavy weight. Um, and anyone who has carried it, man or woman, doesn't matter what when you carry that burden, you understand it, that it's very real. Um, the second thing is we can't out earn what we believe we're worth.
Mhm.
And there's something there that is so deeply painful for most people. It is so deeply vulnerable, but particularly for women, we just keep ourselves at a level of earning or a pace of busyness that is, in the end, damaging to us and undervaluing our unique genius.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's super unhealthy. And of course, like I've always like thought about it, but it's become more and more clear to me
yeah. Well,
of why.
you're also ramming into some real financial realities, childcare, right? The cost of living, just the cost of living, right? Overall,
In
right?
California, it's very expensive.
Yeah. I mean, where I live, right? Like near Chicago, same thing.
Yeah.
But also, you're running into the fact that it's nearly impossible to live on just one income for a family of four or five or six. It's the amount of money you have to make to support that number of people is staggering.
Yeah.
Our economy, that's a tension that you're just hitting at all those crossroads at the same time, plus an unexpected event that you didn't anticipate.
Mhm.
Hmm.
just running a business. I mean, I would never do it any other way differently. I love that. You know, like my husband's like, well, why don't you just go work again? And I was like, no, like that's definitely not in the cards. But there's so many expenses that come out of it, insurance and then taxes. And it's just like one thing after another. You got to pay for the software and your website and all these things. And I'm like, and then, you know, we have on one of our businesses, we have employees. And so, you know, it's like a whole thing. And so it's all good work and I'm learning so much from it. But I think I'm like, okay, something's got to change because this is not gonna, I can't thrive like this anymore.
Yeah.
I've been
You're
hustling
also,
since the last 25 years, hustling, hustling. I mean, even before when I got my first job, I always had like three jobs or two jobs, and I was constantly working because I definitely have like that's my worth ethic, and I get that from my father. But I don't want to do it anymore.
here's another truth that I write about is that your a survival behavior, which a lot of entrepreneurs, their survival behavior is hustle, overworking, busy, busy, hustle, hustle, hustle. When you employ a survival behavior past the point of needing it, it becomes really damaging.
Mhm.
So when hustle is carried out over decades, if you like you'll get sick. You know, your body will not, it doesn't work over the long run. You start to have negative consequences to that are very real.
Mhm.
So I think this shift that you're recognizing needs to happen is vital for more reasons than just money or providing for your family, that is kind of survival. But it's important because you have a 3-year-old and you need your body to be whole and healthy and able to move right through the world for a long time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's really important.
How did you come up with the title name?
Mm, that's such a good story. And I will tell you, the publisher did not want this title. They wanted the book to be sort of me-centric, meaning like I was framed as sort of the expert, but that's not what this book is. None of my work is that. My work is actually about the people I serve so deeply. So I was at a community event. I met this woman very briefly through a mutual friend. I knew of her because she is very visible. She sits at some really important tables. Her decisions affect thousands of people in our community. She has a really active family life and like she's very involved in our community. So I really was like, oh, I really liked her. So I reached out and said, would you have coffee with me? So we met and I just listened to her story for about an hour. And about 55 minutes into the conversation, she brusquely interrupts me and she says, why did you invite me here today? And I looked her in the eye and I said the first thing that I thought of, which was because I see you. And she put her head down and just wept. And then I just waited and then it felt like a really long time, but then she sat up and she wiped her face off and kind of collected herself and she said, "Thank you. So few people do." And I just thought, oh, the irony of that everyone sees this woman in so many contexts, but nobody really sees her or her experience. And that's who I wrote the book for, are all of those women who like they've done some stuff. These aren't people at the beginning really necessarily. They're people who have accomplished some things and they've built something and they have a level of success. I mean, and they just have somehow through all of the work and busyness become invisible to people what's actually happening in their existence. And so those are my people.
I love that. It is very relatable to this podcast too, because this podcast came about because during the time I was doing business development, and so I would meet clients and we'd go out to lunch or we were having a glass of wine, and I guess I have this. presence for me that people just want to tell me their whole life story, and I make them feel comfortable, and I give them the space to do so. And people would tell me things that they're like, we've never told anybody that. And I had a moment, and it's so funny. It's like always those moments of like you're sitting somewhere. Like I remember I was sitting with this one lady. She's been on my podcast, by the way. Her son is very autistic, like very far on the spectrum. And she was telling me the story about how he like just lashes out and he beats her, and it's like this whole thing, right? I get the chills thinking about it. And just like having that moment of like, dang, some people have it hard. And again, she's a very successful businesswoman. She's known in the community to be this like powerhouse, but then to see something that happens behind closed doors or, something that we don't shed light on, I was
Yeah.
like, wow. And I'm like, can I have a podcast that we as women have a space to talk about these things or talk about the experiences that we've had or hold space for others who are going through it? And so that's how the podcast started. And that is my why too. It's like that moment that I was like, I need to have this podcast.
That's awesome.
And I think that, and even doing the retreats, it's like, I think women need more space to feel, to be, um, to feel like they're a person, to feel like find themselves again, because I think we all get lost in either work or kids and we lose who we truly are. And so this is the work that I love doing so much. And this is what fuels my soul. And so that's where I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, this is it. This is the journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I might challenge you a little though, that the
But
work you were doing before also included that. Because I don't think you would have been as successful as you were had you not been doing that all along.
yeah, you mean the business development work?
Mhm.
Yeah, I know I'm really good at that. I hate to like
But I
toot,
mean, I
but
think the
like,
reason you're probably good at that is the same reason you're good over here. So
right,
I'm just suggesting that like you've been doing this work all along because it's your natural genius. It was just in a different context.
for sure. In a
This is
different
a more stripped down version of it, perhaps.
Yeah. It's a wild ride. I love all of this. I love personal development. I love being in rooms with them. I love meeting women who are doing really cool and inspiring things. It's a really cool place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else that we didn't talk about? I
Mhm.
mean, where like you said you have group programs, you can do one-on-one. What do maybe your group programs look like? How could people connect with you? I'm sure people are like, oh my God, I need to meet this woman. I need to read this book. So I would love
Oh,
to hear
good.
how they can do that.
Okay, so really simply, I'll start with my book because I did design the book to be sort of a foyer to my business. You can listen on Audible if you're a listener. It's my voice. I read it. Or you can read it, but it's sort of a way for you to get to know me and the work I do at a really low risk, you know, low cost, low risk. But come on in and look around and see what you think. The second thing that is easy is to take the habit finder. When you take it, because I have a feeling you have a lot of the overachiever types that are listening also, know that this is not saying you are failing or you're not good at something. Know that what the assessment tool, the habit finder, is measuring is risk. So, do you know the game, the children's game Chutes and Ladders, where like you land on a piece and then if you land on that piece, you go down the slide?
Yep.
Habits of thinking work a lot in the same way, where you get yourself in a situation. If you're not aware of it, you'll just go down the slide. And so, what the assessment is measuring is how high the risk is that you're going to fall into a certain habit of thinking. It doesn't mean you always do. It just means when you're not alert and aware, you're going to go right down that slide. And so when you read it, it's very important to read it through that context. But for most people, when they get the results right away, they will say, how did it know this? Because I don't know that I could have even known this, but when I'm reading it, it's so true. So that is something really fun and easy and free that you can do at any time is just take the habit finder. Also, my groups, I run them like school. So get paid like a CEO, work like a teacher. Here we are. I work in semesters. I do a fall and a spring semester. So I start my next groups in September and they go through December. We always meet during the day, during lunch hours, so from noon to 1 Central Time, my time, and we meet every other week for 8 sessions. So everyone takes the habit finder. Each session covers one habit of thinking, and it's a discussion. It is not a teaching, it is a show up and we are talking. I am facilitating conversation among 8 to 10 women. Those experiences have been so cool because it has created a community where people have connected from different parts of the country and different professions and everything that's really lasting and cool. So those are probably the best ways. You can learn all about all of that at my website, which is amykemp.com, amykemp.com. The book, the habit finder, the work, the coaching work I do is all on the website. So
I love that. I'm so glad we connected. It's always interesting when I have these podcasts, like when I have my guests come on, they always come in a certain time of my life or a certain time of the month or a certain time of the week when it's like you just needed that message and you just need like every podcast I would say in the last 6 months have been that way for me. And so I'm truly glad that we connected. I am going to buy the book and I'm going to take the habit finder and
and I feel like just as an encouragement to you, I think your awareness of you saying, this isn't sustainable. I can't keep doing this. It's not working. One, you didn't do anything wrong to get yourself where you are.
yeah,
I mean, just stuff happens, right? But two, um, you can't go to the next place without first realizing that where you are isn't working and acknowledging it. There's something really important about that. Just you saying it out loud that I think is going to open doors and create a path. And I just would say keep open and aware and say yes when the thing shows up that feels like this is taking you in that new way. So, anyhow.
I love that. Thank you for that. Thank you for being here. I cannot wait to continue to watch your journey and I hope that we stay connected.
Thanks, Heather. Appreciate it.